God's house and mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, prepare a place for you. I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go, ye know, and the way ye know.
It's about time, man, because I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to get the kingdom. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to breathe fresh. I'm ready to have beautiful, pure women, okay? Not no strawberry hollis on this side. I'm ready to have children, man, you can vibe with, okay? Be around brothers. Be around the Lord himself, okay? I'm ready to go and visit places in the galaxy that we didn't know exist, all right? I'm ready to walk on sandy beaches, man, and explore the ocean floors. I'm ready to fly, okay? I'm ready to eat real food. Okay, I'm ready to drive a chariot, man. All right, I'm ready to minister to the Lord and to be ministered to, man. Okay, I'm ready to worship Yahushua in its full entirety. Okay, I'm ready for it. We're ready, man. I'm ready to see angels and greet angels.
But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. But God hath revealed them unto us by his Spirit.
Repeating Mazda is how do they have to fuss all this?
The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with God. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same, in hope, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits within ourselves, wait to the redemption of our body. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth.
Repeating Mazda is how do they have to fuss all this?
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah by Hashem, Makakodash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth. And then sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah by Hashem, Makakodash. Pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers or listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and coming with another morning news and prophecy. And what we're going to get into this morning, is how technocracy Esau's last card. All right, because we know within this technocracy, which this is what this so-called democracy is transitioning into, is a technocracy. Okay, a government ruled by technology. All right, and as John the Revelator seen in the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, okay, that there was a device that was mandated, to be able to participate in this technocracy. Okay, and it's going to come to the time when he's going to mandate, this technology by death, according to Revelation 20. All right, and the 20th chapter, I believe the 24th. Okay, so we're coming into this time, and this is E's last card, because when he plays, this technocracy card and mandates this technology, the RFID chip, okay, that's it. That's his last card to play. And he's gonna have to deal with this war. All right, going nuclear, and he's gonna have to deal with the return of Yahweh Shai after he makes this technology mandate. So we're in some beautiful times, and we know leading up to this technology being mandated that the devil is going to bring all type of crisis, okay, to create desperation, okay, to present the C-hip as a salvation, as a fix-all, okay, and we're going to get into some things, man. And what we're witnessing is the ultimate blasphemy of Esau Edom towards the Most High with this technocracy, and the culture that he's established in the world, leading into the technocracy has been, okay, completely anti-Messiah and blasphemous, man. Which the scripture said he would do. So matter of fact, let's go here. Let's get this in the book of Daniel. Let's pull this up. Okay, the book of Daniel, chapter 7. All right, this is the book of Daniel. Well, verse 8. Daniel 7 and 8 says, I considered the horns and beheld there came up among them another little horn. And this is America. Okay, this little horn in Daniel 7 and 8 chapter, okay, is the American empire, which would emerge, okay, from the colonization of these of Europe, mainly from the British, okay, because America is what an offshoot of the British Empire. Okay, it says before whom there were three of the horns plucked up by the roots. All right, the British, the French, and the Spanish. Okay, America, all right, came out on top as the dominant empire, okay, of this beast system. Okay, and through the American empire, the elites, okay, have been able, to push the world towards this technocracy. Okay, that's why this technocracy has been American led. Okay, that's why you see, America, the elites was using America to make a big push towards technocracy. And the first thing they had to do was deceive the nations. Okay, they had to enchant the nations through what? America. All right, because America became the standard of the earth. The nations began to model themselves after America, man. Okay, and America was completely anti-Messiah, all right, and completely blasphemous against the Most High. Okay, it says, and behold, it is the horn, all right, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of men, and a mouth speaking great things. Okay, and the mouth speaking great things. So what we're seeing is Esau, has used America, this mouth speaking great things. America has been the voice, okay, of anti-Messiah in the earth. You look at American culture when these nations, when the elites crash these different governments and use the American economy and American military to do coups. Well, what do they bring in? They bring in anti-Messiah culture. You see, they know they establish an anti-Messiah culture and get people to worship the beast. Okay, it'd be easy for get people what to take the mark. Okay, when you look at these nations that collapse, all right, then you look at what happens to these nations. Even when you go into these like these GCC nations, Saudi Arabia, all right, UAE, these nations have been Americanized. Okay, they have these puppet leaders. Okay, but it's American culture. That's why you see these rappers, and that's why you see the nigga woman going to Dubai. Okay, you see, that's why she feels comfortable in Dubai. All right, because why? They have taken on, all right, the image of the beast. Okay, they've joined the beast in blasphemy against the Most High. That's why when the nigga woman go over there, what do? The most despicable things. Okay, they go do the most lewdest things with them Saudi princes, man. You know, or them shake princes, man. You see why? Because the world has taken on the image of the beast, man. Some more than others, man. But that's why there's going to be a global judgment and a global enslavement of the nations, man. Okay, because they've joined this beast. Okay, they joined Esau, Edom, this beast system in the last days, speaking great things. And even when you go to Revelation 13, and we're going to get that. I got a few things I want to get into dealing with blasphemy. Okay, but when you get Revelation 13 and 1, it says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now the sea represents the people. Okay, and Esau, Edom has had different empires that would arise from amongst the people. Okay, these 7 heads represents those 7 empires. Okay, that Esau has ruled out of. All right, the Greeks, the Romans, all right, Germania Major, Germania Minor, the British, the French, and the Spanish. Okay, and then you had the way the Roman Empire was set up. It had these vassals because Rome was Esau's vastest, okay, empire. Okay, and amongst those empires, you had amongst the Roman Empire, you would have these vassals set up, okay, that had their alliance to Rome. They had a sub autonomy. They had certain, privileges under the Roman Empire. Okay, but they were subjugated to, all right, the Roman government. Okay, and they were subjugated to what? To aid Rome in his military, all right, campaigns. Okay, just like NATO and the EU was set up to aid, okay, America in his campaigns. Okay, it says and upon his head the name of blasphemy. You see that? So Esau's empire is associated with blasphemy. Okay, and when you jump down, okay, to verse 13, and it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded unto death, one of the heads of this beast, and this is the Roman Empire. Was wounded during what they call the Dark Ages, and his daily wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So the Renaissance is a revival of the Greco-Roman Empire. Okay, and this Greco-Roman Empire has now went global. It has encompassed the whole globe. Okay, that's why you have people in South Korea, Africa, okay, Australia. They all wandering after the beast. They model their governments after this beast. Okay, after the dragon and the Roman Empire. Okay, so we're seeing the world enchanted. Okay, by this beast that was what they had this deadly wound. All right, one of the heads of this beast, which is Rome, they had the deadly wound, and it was healed. Okay, and we're living in that time when this wound has been healed, man. But see, the Most High, Yahweh Shai, he's coming, all right, to destroy, to cut the head off the snake this time, man, once and for all. Okay, and it says, and they worship the dragon, which gave power to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Okay, so what Esau has gotten people to do is to worship the dragon, man. Esau has gotten people to worship pagan Rome. Okay, everyone that loved this current beast system, well, they are worshiping the image, all right, the replica of pagan Rome, just more technology, man. Okay, and they look at this system as if this system can never collapse. Who can make war with him? Okay, and they look at this system as a god. You know, people look at this system as a god. That's why you have this concept called trust the science. That's you trusting Esau. That's you trusting this beast system, man. Okay, as if Esau has it all figured out, as if he's all powerful, man. When you have crisis in the world, what do people look to? They look to Esau to fix it. Okay, that's why even with the demic was a prelude to the chip. Okay, because when you had this global, this planned event, okay, of the C-19, well, the world looked to Esau and his science. Okay, there wasn't no great revival. There wasn't no mass call to fast and pray. And no, they looked to Esau. Everybody lined up for the hit me. They lined up for the juice. Okay, because why? Most of the world worship the beast. Okay, and they're primed to take this seal. Okay, and the devil, he's getting ready to bring crisis. Okay, to create desperation. Okay, and he's already rolling out the infrastructure, man. Now it's just okay. When is this nigga gonna bring the crisis? Okay. Now verse 6 it says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name. Okay, which God and Jesus is not his name. Okay, there's blasphemy. The Heavenly Father has a proper name, Yahweh, and the Son has a proper name, Yahweh Shai. Okay, then to give the Son of the Most High, okay, a Greek, English, all right, transliteration of a Greek name, that's blasphemy, man. Okay, it says in his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven, the angels, okay, and the people, because we represent the Lord's tabernacle, man. Okay, with this man calling, himself us, it's blasphemy, man. Okay, Edomite saying that they're all right, the chosen people. You see, that's blasphemy, man. So when you go into, let's get this word blasphemy real quick. All right, let's go here. And let's get this word. Let's see. Yeah. So you go into the definition of blasphemy. All right. It says blasphemy is the act of showing great disrespect, contempt, or lack of reverence towards the Most High, a religion, or something considered sacred. And this is what we see in Esau's kingdom. There's a great disrespect. Okay, this nigga gave a whole month, all right, to alphabet. That's blasphemy, man. Okay, you go into the scriptures, it's clear how the Most High feels about their behavior. Okay, Solomon and Gomorrah was an example. And what does Esau do? He hypes, he markets, okay, the abomination, man. Okay, he markets, okay, feminism. That's blasphemy. That ain't the order the Lord set up. Okay, he blasphemed. I mean, Esau markets the things that the Lord's hate. Man, this is ultimate disrespect. Him trying to monitor and track people's thoughts, and that's blasphemy. That's the Most High's. Okay, that's his seat of power. You see, that's what he does, man. Trying to recreate food, and that's the Most High already did that. Okay, You see, trying to mimic the miracles of Yahweh Shah. This is all blasphemy, and it's a lack of reverence towards the Most High. This whole New World Order is a lack of reverence towards the Most High, man. You know, that's why the destruction is going to be so devastating, man. You know, that's why the Lord is going to do a global judgment, man, because this blasphemy has spread throughout the world to where you got all these nations on board. Now, I looked up real quick on the Google, then I got this video going to a the Technocracy. Now it says trying to replace the Most High with technology can be considered blasphemy or idolatry in many major religions. This act places human inventions above the Creator. It treats machines or artificial intelligence as if they hold supreme power, wisdom, or moral authority. Okay, and this is how this man is trying to establish his AI. Okay, as if AI, you know, is all knowing. Okay, his AI is all seeing, all powerful. Okay, and it can replace the Most High. AI, you know, has the true wisdom. If AI doesn't verify it, then it's not true. Okay, moral authority, trying to establish moral authority through AI. AI gets to decide who lives. Okay, according to the data. You know, according to the data, AI gets to decide who lives, what's moral, what's right. Okay, going to their social credit score. Okay, so let's go here real quick. It says false God said elevating code or data to a divine status worships a tool instead of the maker. Human pride, believing tech can fix all human flaws, shows dangerous pride, man. Okay, and this is dangerous pride because he's going to present this technology. How is he marketing this technology to fix all? Well, look, the technology is going to fix the economy. No more inflation. Okay, technology is going to fix health. Okay, all full AI hospitals. Okay, AI is going to create, you know, world peace and all this BS that he's peddling. Okay, it says reducing. It says loss of soul. It says reducing life to mere data ignores the sacred and spiritual parts of being human. And this is what the devil wants to do, man. He wants to reduce life to a data. Okay, this is very corner. This is a low frequency what this man is trying to pull off, man. Okay, it's very unnatural what this man is trying to do. Okay, and it's blasphemy against the Most High. Okay, and that blasphemy is gonna get met with judgment, man. So let's go from there. I got this video here. I want to get dealing with technocracy, man. He pretty much sums up a lot of things, you know, of what we're seeing. Okay, so let's play this. I'll put the link.
What if the real agenda behind flock cameras and data centers was something so dark and so frightening and diabolical that most Americans would just write it off tinfoil conspiracy or a story 80s sci-fi? Overnight, these issues have become hotly. Now, has this happened because the general public is suddenly aware of the tech? Unfortunately not. I think the reason's much simpler. I think it's because these things started affecting average, everyday Americans. The middle-class family living in the suburbs of Clay realized that their electric bill was going up month after month. 15% more, 50% more, 140% giant data centers. The grandparents living in a small rural town in Texas that started to notice the chorus of frogs and crickets was now filled with something else. This mechanical, unsettling hum of the new dippers that sold 200 acres for 7 figures What they didn't realize, though, was that multi-million dollar sale wasn't just for that Smith's family's land. The sale was also for the nighttime peace of the entire community. And so once it started, out of nowhere, crowds were showing up at city council planning meetings to oppose new data center construction. But then you have the flock overnight at their local playground had some strange things about it. It was looking right at the playground, at the kids playing, and that got them asking questions. Sam was pulled over at gunpoint by a squad of 7 officers because he'd supposedly stolen the car that he was driving. Never mind that he'd bought it 2 years ago and that he had a copy of the title with his name on it, and the glove incorrectly identified his vehicle as stolen. So that got him asking questions. And now Tiffany thought she'd finally rid herself of this abusive relationship with her ex-husband. But then she noticed him appearing in the public places that she visited, watching her at the local park. While she couldn't make sense of it, until one morning she saw a local news headline on Facebook. Her ex-husband was the people that he was stalking. It made her sick to her stomach, and then she started asking questions. So the names in these stories are just placeholders, but these stories are real, and there's a lot of them. Data centers and flock cameras have made national headlines because enough Americans started speaking out about how this technology was negatively affecting their lives. They started asking. But there's one question very few have thought to ask. Why the sudden push for data centers and flock cameras in the first place? Why the executive orders designed to make data centers as untouchable as possible by the will of the people? Why the massive taxpayer-funded contracts with a multi-billion-dollar surveillance company whose entire business model was built on surveilling every single American in the country? Well, getting the correct answers starts with asking the correct questions. But the answer to this question is extremely complex. It spans nearly 100 years and involves some of the most wealthy and powerful people in the world. So in this show, I'm going to do my best to explain that why in the simplest and most honest way that I can. Now, I don't disagree with my answer, and that's fine. But you might be frightened by it, and I'd say that's actually a pretty healthy first step. Just let your next step be learning to channel fear into something that can stop this plan and into making yourself and your family more resilient and better protected from it. Okay, buckle up. Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So this is kind of a special episode where I'm going to attempt to tackle this incredibly complex issue and hopefully make it easier for you to understand because it's very, very important. The answer to our question of why this sudden acceleration starts with one word: technocracy. What's that? Well, let's try to make it simple. Technocracy is a system of governance where society is run by engineers, scientists, and tech experts, not by the people or their representatives. In its original form, it proposed getting rid of our price-based economy and replacing it with one where unelected experts control the production and distribution of all resources, and where every citizen's consumption is measured, allocated, and monitored. So think about this. Imagine one brand of car owned by the government with a price that's set by the government. No other brands of cars, right? But you couldn't buy this car. You could only exchange your energy credits or your tokens for access to use it. Now imagine that same scenario for homes, tools, food, clothes, medicine. Do you really own that movie you bought on Apple TV? No, you own a license to access it, and they can revoke that license at will. So in this system, there's no voting, there's no property rights, there's no ownership. It's just a terms of service agreement, all managed and controlled top to bottom by people who believe that they know how to run your life better than you. And here's the fatal flaw at the heart of it. It's a question that no algorithm can answer, no AI can answer. Who decides what is fair, what's just, or what's legal or moral? Because technology doesn't create values, people do. An algorithm can optimize traffic or track energy token allocation, but someone
and people don't create value. The values come from Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Okay? There's only one way to run the planet Earth, and that's through the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Matter of fact, real quick, if a brother can put Ecclesiastes chapter 12, let me see, real quick. Okay, and Esau has confused, the masses, of what's right, what's wrong, what's morals, my truth, my truth, not your truth, all this confusion, to where he's able to interject his madness, man. Okay, but there's a simplicity in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. Okay, and here it is, the richest king, the wisest king that ever lived, came to a conclusion. Okay, and King Solomon was far wiser than some goddamn AI. Okay, much wiser than some damn AI. Okay, yes, so Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, Baba Kashah. If a brother can post it, you see. So yeah, the devil wants to try to measure, every bite you take. He wants to measure your calories. That's why, you have, these biometric devices. Okay, what you call these health wearables, which you can use them. They have a use. Okay, but what are these things doing? Okay, they're training AI, to measure. Okay, your biometrics, man. They can measure your footprint. Okay, in existence, he's trying to quantify your existence to a carbon footprint. Okay, you don't ate this many calories. You weigh this much. You don't walk this much. Okay, well, you only walk so many steps. Well, according to how many steps you walk, all right. Well, you only allow this much, man. Come on, man. Okay, this would be the new world order would be extremely tacky, man, and flawed. Okay. This is Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 said, let us hear, this is brother servants of Yahushua, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Okay, and this devil wants to overcomplicate every goddamn thing, man. Has overcomplicated every goddamn thing. Okay, that's why it's nothing but divisions and clashes in the earth, man. That's why the earth is just a continual big argument, man. Okay, most people conversation is just a goddamn argument, man. Under this man's rulership, because he's done overcomplicated every goddamn thing, man. You see, but when you get down to it, man, hey, King Solomon came to the conclusion, look, hey, fear the Most High and keep his commandment, for this is the whole duty of man. Okay, so let's play some more of this.
Upstream already decided what counts as success and which trade-offs are acceptable. So do you think it's an accident? Heck, it doesn't eliminate rulers. It hides them behind a machine. It allows them to decide what is moral for the entire nation. I recently interviewed Patrick Wood, an author who's studied technocracy for decades and runs the website Technocracy News. It's actually a really good resource I've used for years on my own research. So this interview was one of those genuinely aha conversations for me, where a dozen topics I knew were my takeaway. This ideology of technocracy isn't even close to new. It's nearly a century old. Technocracy was born that they could run society better than markets or property or elected government officials ever could. And that decision was almost certainly funded and directed by a small group of very powerful people. So as Wood put it, scratch, and they nearly pulled it off. One prominent technocrat wrote a book arguing, in Wood's words, that, quote, FDR should declare himself dictator, dismiss Congress, and appoint technocrats top to bottom to run the country. So they even drafted an org chart for governing North America with a continental director at the top, not a president, a director. Now I have to ask, and just being honest, like, could this be a role that they'd want Trump or Vance to fill? I'm not
And what this shows you as well is how old this scheme goes back. You know how far back it goes, almost 100 years. Okay, but they didn't have the technology to pull it off, and they for sure didn't have the buy-in. Okay, but now as information has increased and people are more enchanted and more dumbed down and more dependent on the government, they're in a much better position to attempt to pull this off. Okay, but it just shows you how far back this goes. All right. And in the 70s, they really, tapped back into it and started to roll out the system, okay, around people not knowing they've been building this thing out, since the 70s, man, as far as the infrastructure. Okay. And even when you go back to the 30s, because going back to the 30s, that's when you have a social security card, which was a form of what? Tracking, keeping tabs on everyone. Okay. So this thing has been they've been building this thing out for a while, man. And they'll say this is last card, and he's so far in that he got to go. He got to come on in with it. He's invested everything into it. He got to come on with it.
sure I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just asking a sober question. They also drew a map. The 1934 Technocracy study course shows what they called the North American Technate. It's a single managed territory combining the United States, Canada, Greenland, Mexico, Central America, and the northern tip of South America, including Venezuela. Now, think about which territories have suddenly been in the headlines since January 2025. Greenland, Canada, Panama, Venezuela. And one footnote that might be worth bookmarking: Elon Musk's grandfather was a leader of the technocracy movement in Canada. Now, FDR declined the dictatorship, right? So Americans got wind of the plan, and as Wood put it, they basically ran him out of town. But the idea didn't die. In 1973, Zbigniew Brzezinski and David Rockefeller founded the Trilateral Commission.
Yeah, so in 73, when they had the Trilateral Commission, this is when they started to onboard these nations, all right, economically. Okay, this is when they started to interconnect, all right, these nations economically. Because what did you have? You had the petrodollar that came about in 71. Okay, was created a global demand for the petrodollar, and through the petrodollar, they've been able to gather all these nations into this economic system. Okay, this international economic system through the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Okay, which gave out these loans to nations. Okay, put these nations in debt. Okay, and once you was in debt, you was locked into this international banking system. You see, and now this international banking system is getting ready to go digital. Okay, now you had a few nations that operated on the outside of it. Iran and North Korea, was the two biggest outcasts. And Russia, all right, it plays a role on the global market, but then it also has been an outcast. It has a market to where it can operate, without the international bankers. Okay. Now China is out of Russia, China and Iran. China is the most one that's intertwined. Their economy is the most intertwined with the global market. Okay, but they're able to lean on Iran, and Russia to operate outside the dollar. Okay, along with North Korea. You see, and that's why you see these certain alliances being forged. Okay, and it's interesting, how the Lord got them, fighting as they're entering into this new world order, man. Okay, but you look at these niggas, man. Look at Esau, man. God damn, But yeah, the Trilateral Commission, was really when these devils started to onboard these nations economically into this global system. Okay, so let's play some more.
To create a new international economic order. There was only ever one new economic system on the shelf. Brzezinski even named the destination coming, calling it a technotronic era, arriving roughly 50 years out. So 50 years out from 1973. Do the math on that one. Now, what's that destination look like? So here is a direct quote from Brzezinski in his book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic era, which he wrote in 1970. The Technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to the instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. He wrote that around 56 years ago. So is that plan still active? Right? How has it evolved if it is? Well, here's where we enter Silicon Valley. Here's the uncomfortable truth. A very large portion of the modern technology in our society was not created by private companies led by these genius billionaire entrepreneurs. It was created by private companies acting as fronts for the DoD, the military, and the intelligence agencies. So in various ways, these, quote, private companies were created, funded, and run by our own government that controlled them tightly. The internet itself was invented by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, which is DARPA, right? So DARPA basically created the internet. The first version was called ARPANET. Google's search engine was funded by DARPA and NASA while it was still a Stanford research project.
Now, guess who is the grandson of one of the founders of DARPA? Okay, Jeff Bezos. Okay, the owner of Amazon, the so-called owner of Amazon. All right, because these major corporations, okay, are nothing but government entities. Okay, you know, but they're disguised as these private entities because private entities have more reach. Where the government has restrictions, private entity has more leeway. Okay, so these things are no coincidence, and we went over these things, a few times before. How these private companies, okay, have nothing but government entities disguised as private companies, and they're building out technocracy. Okay, they make these they make these government entities, these private companies, to make it more acceptable to the people, so people become more familiar, okay, with these companies, man. And see, you get used to Amazon and you get used to the convenience, but not knowing pretty soon it's the only way you're going to get things. Okay, they're going to do away with all this going to the grocery store and 2-3 times a week and all. No, you're going to be subjugated to delivery systems. Okay, so people have gotten so used to Amazon. All right, but this is nothing but conditioning for the beast system. You see, people have got used to interacting with people through social media, and that's going to be their way of interacting going forward, man. That's why, you have a society that was called socially awkward, to where it's awkward for people to socialize in real time. People have no social skills in real time, but they're the most sociable things ever on the internet, and it's just conditioning people for technocracy, man. All this social media, Amazon, the internet, the Ring cameras, the AI, people using AI, getting people familiar with AI, and looking at AI as a tool, okay, and not a supervisor, okay, not a part of a digital prison that's being built out, okay. So let's play some more. He's going to go into some more companies as well. Okay.
Larry Ellison built the database technology that became Oracle for the CIA. The project's code name under the CIA was literally Oracle. Palantir, which is now basically the technological backbone of our government, was seeded by In-Q-Tel, the CIA-owned venture capital arm. And in February 2004, DARPA shut down a project called LifeLog. Now, LifeLog's goal was to build a digital record of everything a person does, everywhere they go, everyone they know. So they shut it down, and Facebook was launched the very same day. The iPhone, literally the most popular phone in the world, is basically a bundle of government-funded technology. For goodness sakes, even Siri started out as a DARPA AI project. Now, think of how significant these companies and this technology is. The internet, Facebook, Google, Oracle, Palantir. Isn't it strange that all these companies at the very beginning were funded by either the CIA, DARPA, or NASA? Yet we're all made to believe that they were this magical creation of some college tech genius dorm room that's now turned into a billionaire. Now, why does this government and private company arrangement matter to us? Because the government is bound by the Constitution. It cannot legally build a dossier on every American, track their records, read their communications, or map their relationships. Like Congress would never approve it. The courts would strike it down. But a private company can do all of that. And not just that, we hand over the data voluntarily, one terms of service agreement at a time, because the controllers knew that the Constitution would get in the way of them building a digital control grid for American citizens. So they did it through private companies and universities instead. It's like a wolf slipping on the sheep's clothing and turning back to the flock and saying, "Don't worry, I won't harm you. I'm a sheep." Now, I want to be careful because I'm recording this show on that very technology, and you're probably watching it on a phone or a laptop. So if the technology, though, if it wasn't beneficial, it would never be adopted. So it had to be beneficial and help us. So with it, we can video call our family across the globe. I can write an article or publish a show that reaches thousands and thousands of people within a few days. So of course, the technology has added real benefits to our lives. I'm not here to argue that, but the benefits don't change something's fundamental nature. And that is this, that much of this infrastructure was built from the very beginning for one central purpose: to push technology into every corner of American life that could one day be used to monitor, predict, and control an entire population, to build a digital prison for a nation's own citizens. And for decades, that's all it was. It's just infrastructure, quietly accumulating, and not just in America, around the world. So, what changed recently? Well, Wood used an analogy in our conversation that really stuck with me. Let's say you're driving down a street that you've driven 100 times, and one day there's this multi story building that's suddenly shooting up out of the ground. Well, where'd it come from? But you know how construction works. That building represents years of invisible work: permits, engineering, architecture, investors. But by the time you see the steel going up, the plan for that building is already potentially many years old. So Patrick said, quote, "There's been a slow building of all the necessary elements, and all of a sudden technocracy is being erected on us." Patrick Wood watched what happened around Trump's second term through that lens. The same Silicon Valley billionaires who spent years censoring and attacking conservatives, attacking you and I, they suddenly pivoted hard. Secret fundraising dinners, hundreds of millions in donations, front row seats at the inauguration. And on literally the first full day of the new administration, there was President Trump on stage with Sam Altman from OpenAI and Larry Ellison from Oracle announcing Project Stargate, a $500 billion data center build out. Now, Wood doesn't see these men as individuals who just happened to change their minds. He said they operated as a pack of wolves, perhaps. They were predatory. So it wasn't just Musk and Doge. It was David Sachs as AI czar, Howard Lutnick at Commerce, and a bench of PayPal Mafia alumni threaded throughout the entire administration. So these men have no political home. They attach themselves to whoever will let them build. And in Wood's blunt assessment, Trump has, quote, emerged now as the technocrat in chief. Now, I'm going to give you a concrete example of how this pack operates. Let's look at what happened with digital currency. So Trump signed an executive order banning the Federal Reserve from pursuing a central bank digital currency, and everyone cheered. Finally, someone stopped the CBC. Except that's not what really happened. What actually happened is that the Fed was just shoved aside and a privatized digital currency system was erected in its place, controlled not by a public institution with at least some nominal accountability, but by a handful of private hands. Whose private hands? Well, let's follow the names. Tether, the largest stable coin on the planet, keeps its billions in the treasury reserves at Cantor Fitzgerald, the firm that Howard Lutnick ran until he became Trump's commerce secretary. His sons now run it. Circle, the second largest, has its reserves managed by BlackRock, run by Larry Fink.
And BlackRock is a tool, an entity of the Rothschilds. Okay, so Trump fully handed over, you see, a digital currency to the Rothschilds, man. Okay, Trump fully handed America over to the technocrats. Okay, you are in the hands of the technocrats. Okay, Trump is just a guy, and that's why you look at Trump and he's just saying anything because he's just a distraction at this point. Okay, he's already signed and did everything that he needs to do. Okay, to transition the democracy to a technocracy, man. Okay, Doge just came in and did what it needed to do, remove certain, bureaucracies that would block, all right, AI. Okay, got all the data, gave it to Palantir. Okay, it's already been handed over. Okay, Trump has already handed over. Okay, you Americans to technocracy, man. You see, so everything else he's doing, he's just a distraction, man. Okay, because he gained this war. He's not running this war, man. He don't know what the hell to do in the war. Okay, you see, that's why you see, you want to know what's going on with the war. The last person you should listen to is Trump. Okay, because prophecy is taking over. You see, and along with this war, as this war escalate, what do you have? This technocracy escalates, man. Okay, so let's play a little more.
Guy who promises that everything will be tokenized. And then World Liberty Financial, which is the Trump's own crypto venture, now issues its own stablecoin under this very law that the administration signed. So the digital dollar wasn't stopped, it was privatized, and the men who privatized it kept the keys. And this new financial plumbing exists to enable the real prize.
Law firm owner, if you feel like your team is dropping the ball, it's usually not an effort problem. It's a workflow problem. New matter.
Tokenization. So Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, said it openly. He said, anything that can be tokenized will be tokenized. But what's that mean, though? What's tokenization? Here's a simple version. During the interview with Wood, I held up this 10-ounce bar of silver, right?
So yeah, he goes on into it some more. You can watch the rest of it. I put it in the link. Put the link in the box. But let's go here. Let's get this in the book of Proverbs. Okay. Because this is the last card Esau has, and he's all in. He's too far in. So he has to come on with, these crises, okay, to make this technocracy seem reasonable, to make it seem as if this is the only solution. Okay. And that's what this devil is gearing up to do. Okay. He's been pump faking, but eventually gonna come on with something, man. He's been, we thought the Hunter virus was gonna be, the thing. Then it was the Ebola, then it was the gas shortages. We thought that, but eventually gonna have to come on with something, man. The devil, pump faking, and then that's another tactic too. The devil wants to lure people to sleep because he throws things out there to see what the reaction gonna be. Because as soon as he came with the Hunter virus, people already say, "Uh-oh, pandemic 2.0." Okay, he came with the, he was pushing the gas shortages. People, instantly, uh-oh, pandemic 2.0, the same thing. Uh-oh, looking like, you see. So eventually, he's just gonna have to come with it. He's just gonna have to say, F it and just roll with it, man. And just come on with the crisis. Okay, allow this thing to get out of hand, especially in America. Okay, and then pop up with this solution of technocracy, man. That's his last card. Okay, it goes because it's going downhill now, but it's just going to accelerate downhill. When he plays that last card, the technocracy, by mandating this technology, man. Proverbs 5:21 in the NLT, it said, "For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes." Okay, so the Lord clearly sees what this devil is doing. The devil's not doing nothing, and the Most High is having to catch up. Okay, no, man, this man is doing exactly what he was programmed to do and created to do from the beginning. Okay, just as you have the elect predestined from the foundation of the world, what Esau was predestined to be, to do, and do exactly what he's doing right now. Every step, every move he's making was already predestined. Okay, and he loses. Okay, Verse 22 says, the evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are a rope that catch and hold him, man. Yeah, so Esau has entangled himself in his own wickedness, man. Okay? He's so deep into this thing and so entangled into this thing, man. He can't get out of it, man. He just got to keep carrying through. You know, he just got to try to carry this thing out, man, because he's so entangled into it. Okay? He's entangled his own wickedness, man. You know, and the only thing left, the Lord got it to where all he can do is fulfill his last few moves of prophecy, and he's out of here, man. Verse 23 says he would die for lack of self-control. Okay, because when this devil got hold to this technology, man, he couldn't help but try to be the Most High, to try to replace the Most High, because that's the ambition that's already in him. Okay, and the Lord built that ambition in Esau so he would lose. Okay, you know, Esau giving this devil this access to this wealth, you know, this system where he's able to print wealth, you know, through the petrodollar. Okay, then this technology with the AI. Okay, he's able to automate it, you know, the cameras, the satellites. He knew that all this would lead to Esau destroying his goddamn self, man, and trying to be the Most High, which is complete blasphemy, which is going to be judged harshly, okay, in the days to come. It says he will be lost because of his great foolishness, man. You know, and as we see the devil, as we really look at the devil trying to roll this thing out and really what he's trying to do, it seems more and more foolish, man. Okay, but he has no choice but to try, you know, to carry this thing out, man. Okay, so yeah, man, we some beautiful times, you know, we're watching the devil, um, uh, uh, yeah, we're watching the devil, you know, getting ready to play his last card and be judged, you know, and this is the fate of the saints, man. Okay, is Esau Edom finally being judged, man? Okay, this beast system being destroyed. Okay, and Yahweh Shah delivering his remnant. So we're here, man. The stage is set. So it's just the ball is in the court of Esau, man. Like he got to come on, what he got to come on with, so he can mandate these things, man. You know, and that can be an any day scenario to where something drastic can happen and throw everything into crisis mode. Okay, so it's just a thing of waiting. You know, it's the waiting game. You know, so Lord will, you know, you brothers are at the end. You few sisters edified once again. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah by Hashem, Makakwadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers, and peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful. Shalom.